Survivor fans, welcome back to our Slugfest here at Gold Derby. And Matt, let's just get right into this one.
Yes.
Josh was one of the most beloved castaways. People were saying, including us, that he could win this thing for since probably week one. And now he's gone. What does that mean for the show?
Yeah, well, I guess we saw our big rivalry so far of the season with Jeremy and Josh, and it looked like one of them was probably going to go home until Jeremy won immunity, and Jeremy was able to get the numbers together. That alliance was able to pull it together, get rid of Josh, a big move for that whole crew. They've taken out one of the biggest threats in the game. The show could get to a bit boring now that we've seen the two alliances clash if no one flips anymore, so we could be looking at a boring stretch of the season, but we'll have to see how it plays out.
Right. And I love how in that immunity challenge, it came down to Jeremy versus Josh. Like, you can't write this stuff. Like, how perfect was that?
Yeah, they were playing for their lives, and I wonder if it helped Jeremy that Josh had won that. Because all of a sudden, like, that big threat of Jeremy, and when it becomes Josh versus Baylor for the vote, it just takes a bit of that incentive to join Josh's group. Like, you don't get to take out the big threat of Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when they've been arguing, like, at least Josh's argument has been, oh, we got to keep all the couples together. Like, you know, and then all of a sudden you're trying to convince Josh and Jacqueline to vote out someone that's in a couple. That would make the singles a bigger group. Like, I just wonder if sort of Jeremy losing the challenge ended up helping Jeremy if Jeremy winning the challenge ended up helping his alliance because all of a sudden it took the big threat on the other side off the table. And all of a sudden it's Josh versus Baylor, and Josh is clearly the bigger threat of those two.
Right. And the way the episode was edited, at least the first half, John and Jacqueline were going to vote out Jeremy.
Yes.
So this is one of those instances where if we can believe the editing of the episode, the immunity idol actually saved someone, which is rare. But he was going to go home.
Which is crazy because, like, last week, because it's really, if Julie hadn't quit last week, it looks very much like Jeremy would have been the person going home. Since John and Jacqueline had decided that night, we're voting out Jeremy with Josh and go. And it's funny, last week you had that discussion with Missy and Julie, and she's going, please don't quit, you got to help us out, just stay for this one vote. And then you can worry about quitting. If Julie had stayed for that one vote, that would have screwed Missy over.
Interesting, yeah.
It was like through Julie quitting, it actually helped. Even though they lost a number, it gave them the time they needed to get the flip they didn't even know they needed to get. So
it's crazy how that worked out.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 2 weeks for those numbers, and really John and Jacqueline being at the center of it all.
And look, when Julie was there, it was this alliance of 7. That's really too many people. So now they have an alliance of 6, which is better. So maybe Julie quitting was good for the show. I think it was good for the show because, as you said last week, she was kind of a boring character.
Yeah.
And we want those people out. We want the Joshes to stay on the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and the Jeremys.
Right, the Jeremys and the Baylors. Baylor, is she still your pick to win? Because she's still mine.
I'm keeping her, but this was another second week in a row, a big thumbs down week for Baylor's chance of winning.
Why?
It's just, I'm struggling to see her get the jury votes.
Well, the thing is, like, she's been on the chopping block, 5 times now, so she can say that in her speech. Like, you guys wanted me out 5 different times, and you were never able to do it. I think that helps her.
Do you see Keith and Wes voting for her? Like, Keith was like, if you were my daughter, I would have, like, whacked you on the head by now. Like, you know, I don't see Keith or Wes voting for her. Alex seems to hate her. Like, I can't see Alec voting for her. So that's 3 votes already down, and I don't see Josh really voting for it either. Like, I think there's at least 4 votes that won't be going her way. So I'm not saying she's out of it, and there's more story to be told. There's more for her to do. Like, I'm not saying she's out of it, but she needs to make some great move before the end of the season. She needs to vote out her mum or something, or have her mum voted out and have to come back from that to win it. Because at the moment, I see her getting to the end, but I don't see the jury votes lining up for her. because of the way we've got our predictions, where the longer you bank on someone, the more points you get at the end, I'm not quite ready to jump ship yet. But, yeah, thumbs down in a big way on Baylor. Like, I've gone from confident she could take it out to very worried.
Right. I would agree she's not the player I thought she was in the beginning, but she's still so entertaining.
Yeah.
Speaking of Keith and Wes and Alec, or as they were known in this episode, the Farters, what was with that fraternity thing that was going on there? Like, what are they thinking? If half of the tribe is girls, you don't want to treat them like they're crap. These people have no self-awareness whatsoever.
Yeah, and like I think there's a way to go about, like, if someone complains about, oh, you guys fighting a lot, you don't go, this ain't the hill, missy. You say, oh, I'm sorry. We just had, like, I'm really sorry. I'll try not to do it in the future.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard out here for me. Like, like, you can just be apologetic about it. Like, I feel like you just apologize and people aren't going to mind as much.
Right.
And just try not to do it as much.
There's always these people on the show every single season that have no idea how to play this game. Sometimes they end up winning.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me. So let's talk about that reward challenge where, I mean, the challenge was kind of boring, but the reward itself, usually on these rewards you see people talking about the gameplay. But even Natalie said, like, are we supposed to be talking about games? Because we're not. And then freaking Wes ate so many tacos, there was actually on the screen hashtag taco overload.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, really, and I don't really like reward challenges too much in Survivor. It doesn't really get to the strategy. But the one thing that's good post-merge is it gives chances for people to make good or bad decisions. You know, that you sometimes have someone winning, you got to take 2 people with you, and it helps establish a pecking order or help, break up an alliance or something like that. And this one ended up being very costly for the Josh crew, where they sent John to Exile Island and left Jacqueline alone with the frat boys, who were pretty rude to her. Sort of like Alec going, man, Natalie's the only, like, woman here who can do anything. Like, and I don't know why he's saying that when Natalie's not even in his alliance. So then Natalie could just jump all over there and goes, I don't even know why he's saying that, guys. Like, that's so rude, isn't it? Like, so, yeah, it's really... Now, obviously, Alex is not a great player, but, he was, like, complimenting someone not in his alliance. Putting down someone who was.
Right.
And not just anyone, the swing vote in his alliance.
I predicted Alec to go home the past 2 weeks, and I'm just going to stick with that. I'm going to keep predicting Alec to go home until he finally leaves.
He'd be a great person to sit next to at the end.
I know. That's true.
But keep predicting him. Keep predicting him.
Yeah. I mean, we have 10 people left, right? We have that huge alliance of 6. And then we have Keith, Wes, Reed, and Alex. So one of those 4 is probably going to go home. It looks like, based on the trailer, that Reed does some digging in Keith's backpack and finds the idol. Which, why don't people do this all the time? Why is this a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing? If I was on that show, I'm digging through everyone's crap. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is interesting. So you got Reed and... so it looks like probably Reed or Keith are going next week. Unless people just do really get sick of Alec. I think, like, it's probably either that idol thing's going to blow up in Keith's face, or they just stick with Reed and sort of the trailer as a misdirect, which it very well could be. So that's what I'm thinking. But, yeah, it's really interesting to see how this goes. And, boy, like, okay, for the win... Like, I feel like this episode helped me sort of maybe solidify in my head who has a chance to win this game. Seeing the numbers play out, see how people are thinking about the game. Who do you think, Marcus, could win this game from here?
From here, I really like Jeremy. I really like Baylor. Natalie. Those 3 for me. Natalie, yeah.
Okay. I think... Do you know who I got really high on this episode?
John?
Jacqueline.
Oh, Jacqueline.
I think Jacqueline could maybe take it out. I've moved her up to my number 2 slot.
Interesting. I really didn't even consider her much of a player, but you're right. She was able to sway John's vote after. Do you think she's playing too emotionally though? She's letting things get to her too much.
I don't know. It's hard because I think it was the right call to go with this group of 6.
Yeah.
Less immunity threats. I think there's some more fluid. Like, clearly, Alec, Reed, like, clearly there was a group of 5 with Josh, Wes, Alec, Reed, Keith, and they were asking John and Jacqueline to join them, right? Like, that was clearly what was happening. Whereas on the other alliance, although I think they're still the bottom 2, I feel like you still got 2 couples and then John and Jacqueline, and I feel like there's room to move there. I feel like we're going to get to the final 6, and then people will probably try to take Jeremy out. Like, I feel like it'll be easy for John and Jacqueline and Missy and Baylor to team up, get rid of Jeremy. Then Natalie becomes sort of maybe a swing vote, and but I just see, like, there's much more movement and less of a hierarchy with that group. Like, who's running that? Is Jeremy running that group, or is Missy running that group?
I'm not sure who's running it.
It could be either, to a degree. Yeah. Like, I'd say probably slightly Jeremy, but you have a less established order.
I think maybe John and Jacqueline are running that group now.
Well, yeah, well, actually, that could be fair. So I think that they're sort of in the mix in that group of 6. The other group, I'm pretty sure they were last 2. Like, you'd have, like, Keith, you'd have, like, Jeremy, you'd have Josh and Reed trying to take maybe Alec along with them, and then you've got, you know, maybe Wes and Alec and Keith. Like, I feel like John and Jacqueline were probably not in anyone's final 2, final 3 strategy on that side. With this side, I could see Missy and Baylor going, okay, now we need to cut loose Jeremy. Or Jeremy going, oh, now we need to cut loose Missy. So I think it's a good move. So I think maybe a little emotional, but I think she, from that, realized that they didn't respect her. And she realized they're not valuing my votes. They're not valuing my place in the game. This might not bode well for me down the track. Like, we're clearly an after. So I think it was a bit emotional, but I think she was sort of getting a sense for where she stood with that group. And she's moved to a group which values her more. Or at least is prepared to pretend they value her more.
And even
so I think it was a good move.
Yeah, even though Josh actually, I'm sorry, not Josh, John is holding the idol in his hand, that's essentially Jacqueline's idol too, because if she needs it, he will give that to her, no question.
Yeah, so, as I think probably Keith's idol could be used for Wes. If Wes was going home, like, I think, you know, this is the love. And if Missy found an idol, I think she'd be prepared to give it to Baylor. Like, I think the couples, the idols, are pretty shared idols.
So now that I'm thinking about this, so that you have the 4 people that are not in the alliance. 2 of those is the father and son, Wes and Keith. So if you were this group of 6, would you want to split up that pair? Is one of those 2 going home this week?
I'd be tempted. I'd be tempted to get rid of maybe a Wes because he's a bit of an immunity, could be an immunity threat. You get rid of one of the couples. Then again, especially if Reed's causing a lot of trouble next week and he seems like he's really playing the game, might be best just to cut him loose. If you're worried, he could get someone to flip or something, like, maybe it's better just to cut Reed free. I think maybe, cut the Reed. And, I think that might be the smart move, but we'll have to see what happens with that idol. The good news is, even if you find out Keith has an idol, like, maybe make him think he's going home so he plays it and you can flush it and vote Reed anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But even if he keeps the idol till next week, they've got enough numbers they can split the vote next week between Keith and Wes. So they don't, there's no, oh man, he's got an idol, we've got to do crazy stuff to get rid of Keith. You can just, he's only got 4 people in his group. Next week he'll only have 3 if they get rid of Reed or Alec. So it's 3 versus, they can easily split the votes. So it shouldn't really have a big factor on that group, the idol.
I'm ready for a big shocker at Tribal Council. I want an idol to be played. I want someone to go home that we're not expecting. And, you know, that could happen this week, especially with Reed revealing the idol secret. And maybe Keith ends up giving it to Wes. I don't know. Yeah. I just want something to happen at Tribal because this is getting a little predictable. But overall, the season, I'm enjoying the season. I think it's one of the good ones.
I think it's a fun season. I think some people said it's a pretty boring one or there aren't many players, but I think it's. I could see Natalie winning. I could see Jeremy winning. I could see Jacqueline winning. John even could be in the mix. So probably less likely than Jacqueline, I'd say. think she's going to maybe give a better pitch at Tribal. He might come across a bit douchey. And yeah, Baylor and Missy, one of them maybe could win, but it'll depend who they're up against at the end. And it'll depend what they do from here on out. But I see maybe the jury not being in love with the Missy Baylor. I think it'd be great if you could sit in between Missy and Baylor in the final Tribal. I think if it's Natalie, Missy, and Baylor, or Jacqueline, Missy, and Baylor, things are looking good for Natalie or Jacqueline.
I feel like Natalie's really underrated. She's a smart player. Occasionally, her mouth gets the better of her, like back in week 3 with John Rocker, but she's one to watch out for.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So I think there's enough players in this season. Maybe no amazing Tony Vlachos level players, but he was 1 in a million, that guy. So anyway, it's been good talking Survivor.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a good time to end it for this week, but we will definitely be back next week. And everyone should go to your Gold Derby predictions and update them. You have just a couple days until the new episode. So I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, bye.